It's always out of combobulation when I set it up, folks. I hope everybody can hear me. Apologies for the second stream last week. It appears that some of you were right. The sound wasn't quite what it was on the first stream. Interestingly enough, that second stream got more views than the first stream, despite an obvious lack of uh, what would I say? A lack of sound quality and all of that. I'm just getting set up here, allowing people to come on in here. Before I get started, I want to say uh, a big hello and how you doing to three individuals that are in the chat right now. Three important individuals to this channel. Of course, Royce Eddings, a brother channel to this channel, or not a brother, it is the brother channel to this channel. The fact that I stream has a lot to do with the fact that I've spent the last 3 years uh, being on Royce's stream live. So any experience that I have, I owe to that gentleman. Royce, thank you so much. And I plan to try and hit your panel tonight right after this stream. Oh my goodness, you guys have to stick around for the Royce's stream and be sure to get on over there. And if you are subscribers to this channel but not over there, I strongly urge you to not only go over there, give him a thumbs up and watch the stream tonight, but also sub him up, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. All right. Another shout out to a longtime supporter of this channel. Of course, I'm talking about Stormcop 55, aka James. All right. And also Divining Dragon. All right. Christian. Now, these three people always show up early in the chat and they keep this chat going. They're also three of my moderators, and so they help to keep the chat clean. And we don't want to deal with trolls on this. We're talking about music. That's what this is about. We don't get into politics, we don't get into religious issues here. First of all, I'm smart enough to realize that each and every one of you are smart enough to figure out what you think is right or wrong in all those areas of life. But the one thing that we all have in common is classic rock, or you probably wouldn't be even watching this stream right now. All right. So a big shout out to them. And of course, the fourth one has to go to my lovely wife, Kimberly. Babe, thank you so much for being the chief moderator while this thing is going on. And she's kind of my connection while I'm live on the air, because I can't just run off and look at this and cover what I am. And so she'll be looking for comments and everything else. Now, I did want to give some more shout outs. First of all, to two brand new members who joined on my last stream last Tuesday. And that's to Eric Demery. Is that how you pronounce your last name, Eric? Or is it Demory? I don't know. You'll have to let me know in the future if you're out there. And to Cynthia Marie. Both of them are brand new channel elders. Now, the reason I'm shouting them out, I've already shouted them out on my the video that followed that Tuesday stream. They got their usual shout outs as brand new channel members on that stream, and they will continue to be shouted out at the end of each and one of my regular pre-recorded videos, whether that's on a members only video or for the channel as a whole. It's my way of saying thank you for supporting this channel in a financial way, and I truly appreciate that. And then I wanted to get down to some other folks. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what they gave the channel last Tuesday. It just blew up. But of course, another one of my longtime viewers, matter of fact, this viewer goes back even further than James, and way back, maybe as far as Royce, maybe even beating Royce. And of course, that's Helene Spalding. If it wasn't for Helene, this channel would not be the size it is that it is right now. She shared one of my videos with another content creator, Wayne from Soul Train Bro, and he covered a couple of my videos, and a whole lot of people joined because of that. And she also gave two shout outs that I'm aware of. And these other people, some of them given 4 and 5, not shout outs, but super thanks. And of course, Captain Coke was all over the place. Eric Demery, who not only joined but gave a shout out. Jimbo, Lionheart Roar, a long time commenter here on the channel, and I hadn't seen too much from Lionheart until he showed up on the stream. So thank you so much. Richard Mueller, many of you will see him as RW. He is a tribal elder or a tribal member. And Michael Boswell, Mark Greenwood, Oberheim, thank you, Brandon. And cheers to all of you down under from us up over. Okay. And of course, Storm Cop was in there. He's in there a lot of the time. Now, I did want to say one thing. I'm just letting people filter in. We'll get right into this because there is a ton to say about the heroes of rock, and I want to talk about why we're doing that tonight. Okay, so I just want to bring up one thing. Now, all of these channel members, by the way, I have committed to getting one video out for members only for these new channel members, and I've kept that going. I put out my first kind of prequel video to what is going to wind up to be a 5-part members only video. Tonight we don't have time to extend this live stream because I've got to shut down by 6 or shortly thereafter. And then I run over at the speed of light from Modesto, California, down to Royce's place, and I join him at Royce in the house. You got to be in the house to do that kind of thing. But I did want to say this: if we can get three super thanks tonight. I'm going to do something to. I sing for my supper, folks. All right, and this can be just three $2 super thanks. I will release part 2 of those member only videos. It's ready to go. It's not scheduled to be released, and I will release it for a 24-hour period. All right. So if you are a channel member and you give a super thanks, you're getting an early release. And if you are not a channel member and you just give a super thanks, we get 3 of them up. I'll put that out for 24 hours, and then it's going to revert back to the channel members. If we don't get that tonight, that's okay. I understand. Things are tough today, and I understand that clearly. Then it will be released to channel members as it was originally planned. But I thought that would be a good way to kind of promote the aspect of being part of a membership here on the channel. Also, those same channel members will tell you they're getting a chance on what might be in the background when you listen to me on my pre-recorded messages. And my members know what that's all about. If you want to know, join the channel because they're helping me make a pretty big decision to change my soundtrack or to keep it as it is, or to keep it as it is and use the new soundtrack, which will be on that release that I'm promising. All right, so let's get down to what the show is all about tonight. This show, this stream, this forum was inspired by a recent video that I did. As a matter of fact, it's my latest video where I covered the story from really from beginning to end. It wasn't my intention to do that, but I sit down in this chair, folks, and I just start talking. I have my notes, what I want to cover, and sometimes I'll have to digress to bring any new viewers up to speed. And I wound up covering the entire story of the Guess Who, as far as the Guess Who being performed by a bunch of louts that had nothing to do with the Guess Who, with the exception of a drummer who was barely there and a bass player who should have never owned the rights to the name, owning it. And of course, through mainly the actions of Burton Cummings, but also Randy Bachman. They wrestled the control of the name of that band. And I see a super thanks right here. My God, Dan. Oh, Dan the man, and Dan, I want to, as I get to this, I'm going to get to this, and then I want to make you a moderator. Anybody that shows up on Royce's in the panel on a regular basis, of course, I want to make moderators for this channel. And Dan, thank you so much. I wasn't expecting a $20 gift tonight at all. I appreciate that. It says, "I support you, my friend. I understand all the costs involved," and Dan would know all about that. He's just now updating his computer system to do a better job. His sound system's much better than mine. I'm still down the road on that. And Dan, this will go to exactly uh, uh, providing a better stream in the future. All right. I've already brought that up many times. Dan was Royce's co host when I first connected with Royce. I actually connected with Royce watching a couple of streams he did about Kiss and everything. And then, but by the time I geared into Royce's channel, it was always Dan. He was second seat over there. And Dan had things, things happen in life, brother. And he had to take a back seat, but he's kind of coming back. He's coming back, folks. Dan, the man, and Dan, along with Royce, kind of nursed me along, and let me be my own self, and that's kind of the secret. You kind of unleash me and just let me off, that type of thing. Thank you so much, Dan. Now, I was talking about this story, and it has a happy ending because not only do they now have control over their songs, over the name, but now in 2026, because they're finishing up their obligations for 2025, both Randy Bachman and Burton Cummings. They're going to be touring as the Guess Who. Now, we haven't heard as to whether there's going to be former members showing up or if they'll be showing up for like special shows along the way. Is this going to be just Burton Cummings and Randy Bachman with some really great players behind them? Certainly, I've expressed that I feel that if you got Randy Bachman and Burton Cummings, you've got the makings of the Who that I loved anyway. So to me, that was a great story, right? So why am I streaming about what I'm streaming tonight? Well, in that video, I also brought up that, it seems like of late, alls I can do is, be covering negative stories. And there's a reason for that. I'm not a negative guy, right? I like, if there's good news, I want to talk about that way before I want to talk about the bad news. But there's a lot of bad news in the world of rock these days. And I feel almost like it's my duty to bring this to the fore and call it for what it is. So, in that video, I said, what a pleasure it is to be able to cover a bit of good news. All right. So, in the world where we have the Eagles, who have the so long, farewell, sayonara, see you later, wouldn't want to be a tour that will not end. I see no end in sight. It's just it's just a buzzword that they're using. And the fact that Don Henley has been busted, and this is part of what we're going to be talking about tonight, lip syncing, giving credence to the theory that there may be even backing tracks being used for their shows. And then we have the thing with Foreigner. I just did a video on them. It looks like, they swore. Jeff Pilson said, "Yeah, I think we're going to tour through 2027." And at the time, I thought that was too long. But now they're kind of grooming this new singer who's the singer of a Broadway show that's connected to Foreigner. They're going to bring him on. They didn't even say if Kelly Hansen's going to be there. I would imagine he is. They've been bringing Lou Gramm on and will continue, I guess, to bring Lou Gramm on for some shows and everything. But with this new young pup in the mix and with Foreigner's past for the past 20 years, I am willing to bet, like I said, dollars to donuts, that we're seeing a band that's prepping to tour well into the 2030s, thus becoming a brand like a McDonald's, right? You can buy, I said, you can buy a Big Mac or what was it, a quarter pounder 30 years ago, and it's the same quarter pounder as it is today. They rubber stamp it out, and they'll just keep replacing live members and maintain the name of that band. That's why I was so happy that the Guess Who, the opposite happened, right? They got the fake band got clobbered. So far, the fake band, a foreigner, is flying high, and of course, Kiss and all of the crap that they've pulled over the years and are currently pulling. First of all, uh, and I have to go over some bad examples so that you know what I'm talking about, and then we're going to get into some good examples. And I want to hear from you guys. People, I'm going to read a couple of comments. If you make comments the day before, I usually give you at least a 24-hour notice that I'll be streaming. And a lot of people, they'll see it right away and they'll make a comment. Well, those comments, once the day of the stream comes, usually gets wiped out, not by me, but by YouTube. But this time I screenshotted them. And before we go on to my list, I will be reading two comments from two of you, one of them Dawson. So, but here it is. Uh, Kiss said goodbye so long. They sold their image. The future of Kiss was going to be nothing more than an avatar show. And I, of course, read the article about how the writer of the article kind of worded it and misused quotes that were out of alignment of the facts, and they're reinventing history. As a matter of fact, since I made that video, Gene Vincent, uh, Gene and Company. I'm not thinking of his last name now. Why can't I think of Gene's last name from Kiss? Simmons. Thank you, darling. All right. See, that it's always good to have somebody in the room, folks. He's gotten a lot of feedback in a negative way, not just from me, because he's already making these things. Well, we never said we wouldn't show, and this is going to be us out of. Evidently, that's one of the things they sold was their image. We're going to be out of costume. And he's hinting that there might be this person showing up, but they're not even hinting that they're actually going to play. Oh, it's a mess, folks. It's a mess. Well, because it has a lot to do with Kiss, right? And I've called these kinds of bands the $1 billion baby club. All right. I just, I just stamped that description on all of them quite recently. All right. So we get all this stuff going, right? And we've got people who are, there's the fact that AI is in the mix now, right? And there's the fact that some rockers are using the backing tracks, as I've mentioned. There's the whole debacle of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as well. And not only just backing tracks and things like that, there's a lot of problems in rock and roll, high ticket prices, preaching at concerts, and alienating half of your fan base with some of the rockers that have been out there. And this has all been kind of culminating for the past decade, as far as I can see, and really gained a momentum in the last 5 or 6 years. And what has happened? Well, rock and roll is no longer the predominant style of music that dominates the airwaves. You have to give that to rap and hip hop these days, right? We've got rockers who are getting older doing shows, and that's another thing that's wrong. No new material from a whole lot of these people because there's just too much money to be made touring. And it doesn't matter even if they have to give you four-fifths of a band that was never there to begin with, they'll do that. And there is a certain ignorance to the rock concert going audience these days. Part of that has to do with their age. They're younger folks. They didn't grow up and see all of this happening, where some of us older geezers saw this can remember when Gene Simmons said this in '89. You know what I'm saying? They don't see the whole picture, so they buy what's been given to them, a McDonald's Big Mac. And I think that that's sad. So, with all of that in mind, I'm going to go down a list here that I think by rockers, and some of these rockers I'm not major fans of. All right. And some of them I am big fans of. All right. And some of them I'm kind of just an average fan of. But they all go up a notch in my book because I think the one thing that's missing in rock and roll today is true leadership. And that leadership should be coming from the rockers, from the few we have from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. And they should be storming the gates over some of the stuff that's been happening. And indeed, some of them have. All right. So, first of all, on my list, I'm going to bring up three rockers. They're actually, well, three bands, although I think with the one case, it's the one individual. I'd have to relook up the article. I covered this, oh, a year and a half ago, was an open letter regarding AI. And actually, I'm going to bring up four people on this, but the first three all co signed a letter that was protesting AI, accusing it of stealing, accusing it of being programmed to mimic writing styles, guitar playing styles, right? Keyboard styles, orchestrational styles, vocal styles, and even copying the vocals, right? So this is obviously anybody with a brain and a half knows this is absolute stealing, folks. This is theft, and I can't abide a thief, right? And it was Bon Jovi. I think it was Bon Jovi of Bon Jovi who co-signed the letter because they weren't together at the time. REM as a band and Pearl Jam as a band all co-signed this letter. Now, this year there was a fourth individual that's starting to take exception. Sometimes this individual is my biggest hero in life, and sometimes he really disappoints me. Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney has recently come out speaking up against AI. Folks, if we don't do something about AI and we don't do something about AI fast, human creativity, I'm not talking just about rock and roll. We as a species are going to be in a lot of trouble. All right. 1984, Big Brother, I guess it was 2024 because you know what? It was last year when AI started getting very freaking sophisticated to the point of the damn thing starting to think. I brought up things that even here on the channel, the YouTube algorithm will type up responses to you guys, and I could swear it was me. It talks just like me in the comments. I don't utilize it, but you kind of got to wonder how many content creators there succumb. Because all you got to do is push a button, especially if you've got 50 comments. That's going to take a tick to respond, right? Excuse me. So these four are on the battleground, see, because we're in the middle of a war here, folks, and they're attacking the machine, right? And so that's why I changed the title of this stream to Rockers Who Have Stood Up Against the Machine. And by that, I don't just mean AI. There's a machine mentality with the music industry these days, folks, and somebody needs to stand up against them. Then we get to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. All right. I've talked about a couple of years ago, maybe it was about a year and a half ago, when Paul Rogers released his Midnight Rose album. I don't know what I've got. I've got a tickle going here. And he was, of course, questioned a whole lot when he came out and he was promoting that album about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because, Bad Company is a band that keeps being mentioned every year as deserving and yet never gets nominated. A little bit of sugar make that tickle go down. So he said at the time that people early on talked about him possibly, or the band being possibly considered for nominations. And his honest response was, why? It's just a freaking museum. Rock and roll should live, right? And where I don't agree with him, I like the idea of a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I wish it worked. I really do, because it's a way of honoring the rockers of our past. It would help solidify it as an art form, honor it as an art form, and identify it firmly as a rock star, a rock art form. So what does it wound up being? It's bastardizing rock and roll. It's trying. I've covered this so many times till I'm blue in the face. But the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominating committee and the chairman of the board are all trying to reinvent. Take a look at my playlist on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I go through names, places, and events where they have done exactly that, folks. That's what they've done. Is they are telling us now what rock and roll is. And some of us who have been rocking and rolling their whole lives, or certainly for as long as it's been around, and I was able to pick up a guitar and cut my fingers to death learning my first six chords, I think I know what rock and roll is. There's a lot of debate as to, some subgenres that might be connected to it, but certainly hip hop and rap are not two of them. And I've backed that up by exploring their background and where it comes from and where rock and roll and where country comes from. And they're three different places, folks. Okay. And so including these people has done something to harm not only the reputation, but the identity itself of rock and roll. Uh, which brings me not only to Paul Rogers, how about freaking Steve Miller? He got up there at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame after his family, his musicians, and him had been repeatedly treated like second-class citizens. They were ramrodded over here. First, he didn't get any tickets for his wife or his family, or he only got so many, and that every other ticket would cost tens of thousands of dollars. Now, that whole thing was supposed to be set up to honor him. Since when do you honor somebody by asking them for a buck? That's ridiculous, right? And so he got up there and he slammed them. I've got that video where he covered it and exactly what he said. And when he did that, it was like, my God, where have all the real men in rock and roll gone? It seems like nobody's got any balls left anymore. And he stood right up there. And Steve Miller is always one of those guys. I got the best of his stuff, right? I didn't follow everything, but I've got tons of respect for him as a musician and a songwriter and even a vocalist. He's not one of my favorite vocalists, but his vocals sound absolutely right for his own style of music, right? And then that leads us to the backing tracks. How about the Foo Fighters? They refuse to use backing tracks. They absolutely won't use it. That's not, that ain't what they call rock and roll, right? And so that is, to me, whether you like the Foo Fighters or not. I know a lot of old Nirvana fans, didn't care for when he went on his own and everything, or casual fans for that matter. I've always been a fan of the Foo Fighters. First of all, their drummer, Taylor Hawkins, I'd already been a fan of him when he used to drum for Alanis Morissette, who I like a lot. I actually think in her heyday anyway, she was exactly the kind of sound and everything that was needed in pop rock radio, and I thought she was quite rock and roll, right? And I loved Taylor Hawkins there when he connected, and they became the Foo Fighters and their albums. I just kept hearing their songs on the radio, and I gradually became more and more of a fan. The more the whole band, of course, is, is around, their lead singer and not even drummer anymore. He's just basically a guitarist and what he wants to do, but he's always looking for a creative angle, a different approach to music, going totally acoustic at one point and blazing practically heavy metal at another point. You never know what you're going to get from them, but they stand their ground. Now, Eddie Vedder, not Van Halen. Eddie Vedder is another, and Pearl Jam with their fight against Ticketmaster. All right, you know what I think about Ticketmaster, with all of their fees and their payouts and what the concessions have to pay them, and everything's adjusted. Everything it has a whole lot, and they absolutely are tearing rock and roll apart by charging far too much, especially for the big acts. Now, notice I'm not talking about Bruce Springsteen here, even though he had some negative things to say about Ticketmaster, but I covered that story. See, Bruce Springsteen and, as a matter of fact, what's her name? Taylor Swift had her fight with Ticketmaster. These guys never have a fight with Ticketmaster until they start getting, cross and angry letters and fan reactions to the scams of that entity, and then they take a stand against it. Eddie Vedder and Pearl Jam took a stand right up there. They lost a lot of money doing that battle, but they fought the hard fight, and I think that's wonderful. The Cure's Robert Smith. Now, I want to get to a couple of comments that I said I'd handle. Now, these are comments in the comments before today, right? You guys just came in, gave me a thumbs up, hit the notify me, and here's what Doc Insomnia had to say. He says, if I'm off work, I'll join in. So I don't know if you're out there, Doc. Don't know if I'm scheduled for Twilight. If I can make it, I'll nominate Zappa, okay, who fought against government censorship, and Tom Petty, good point, who battled record company greed. He even wrote a couple of songs about it, didn't he? And then Dawson Walters, says Robert Smith from The Cure would buy tickets for fans independently instead of through the mainstream third-party websites that which we shouldn't name. Amen to that, Dawson. So I wanted to get those kind of read before I get on to what else I've been covering here today. Let me see if I can get back to the channel here. So what I want to hear from you guys, heroes and zeros, all right, in the comments. If you're watching this and you didn't catch the actual live stream, then I want to hear from you in the comments there. People who have made a difference and people who are part of the problem. All right. Speaking of backing tracks, Metallica absolutely refuses to use backing tracks. Slipknot refuses to use backing tracks. And believe it or not, I did like this guy. I got his first album, thought it was okay, and then it was too light and too saccharine sweet. He should have changed and got some. Anyway, but I loved him at first when he did his gig for the Lord of the Rings, and of course, I'm talking about Ed Sheeran. Won't use backing tracks. Where we've talked about bands who can't start the show unless what? They have their laptop plugged into the PA to play all the orchestrations and additional instruments. And to me, you kind of got to wonder, is it live or Memorex? We're paying these inflated prices, right? We're having people lip syncing in front of us. We're having people who are using backing tracks who can't play their own damn music or not well enough without the help of backing tracks, right? And on top of all of that, for all of this, what happens? Well, hip hop and rap are taking over because they do that shit even better than the rockers do. And it kind of goes over to what they were doing anyway, especially if you get down to, the forums having a DJ and all of that. That's pre recorded whip wop, right? So, and we could even talk about bands and artists who have used loops of famous songs and stealing it that way. The music industry is full of dastardly fellas, folks, and I think it's about time that we all stand up as fans in the comments, if not here on other channels, and let people know the music industry is reading this stuff, or they have people who have people who have people, and they report it on. Why do you think that Gene Simmons is making all of these apologies and explanations on UCR right now and all the other rock news publications? And people are making videos on this is because he's been busted, flat out busted. Remember, he was on tour by himself, canceled most of that tour because of lack of sales, and on top of that, to make more money, he was charging $12,000, 12 grand, folks, $12,000, so that you can be his flunky, so you can be his roadie. And this week he's explained, well, it's not like you'll be, part of a 100-man crew doing the drums, hoisting the drum set up. Because, and then he went on and made a further comment, because we aren't doing the dress up thing. This is much more stripped down and everything, and people are wondering if it's even going to sell. I want to know where I'm at here. Good, we're about halfway. So
you're nailing it, huh?
What's that?
Divining Dragon says you're nailing it.
Nailing it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Christian. I was just getting to the comments. I saw that as she was reading. I want to go back just a bit ways here and talk about it. TJR Classic Rock Corner says the late Rick Wright of Pink Floyd said that the Eagles and the Stones charging $100 in 1994 was asinine, and Floyd charged 35 to 70 for the Division Bell tour. Yes, top dollar, and $100. What year was that when they were charging that in '94? $100. Yeah, that was top dollar still then. Not as bad as it got, but I agree with you. Dwayne Chamberlain, 3.5. The Beatles would have fought the machine, especially John Lennon. You know what? That's a great point, Dwayne, because you know what? For the most part, the Beatles were just regular people like us, just extremely talented geniuses on top of that. But, even John, John gets a little kind of uh, disrespect because, he wrote Working Class Hero, and he never really truly was a working class hero. His aunt was relatively well off, but he was still only like what we would call middle income at best. And he hung with everybody that was middle class. He was as middle class as anybody, and I love that song. But they never lost the fact that they were just four blokes that got together that just wanted to make music. They wanted to make it. They did everything in their power to make it. But one of the things that you can say is the Beatles were the hardest working band in rock. Uh, Absolutely. I mean, even when they quit touring, they practically lived in the studio. And we can thank a whole lot of that to Paul McCartney because he's a workaholic. But they have been quoted time and time again. All four Beatles, I can name quotation after quotation, that we always wanted to give the fans something in return. Now, to me, that's honorable. They commanded top dollar. There's no doubt that when they toured, prices would go up compared to, say, like if the Kinks were touring by themselves versus the Beatles in America, anyway, and the Kinks were really popular in America, the Beatles could command a buck or two more per ticket and probably did, but that's well earned. All right. But if you take a look at I'll tell you when it started going up. It was the probably early 70s when Ticketron and all of that started on, right? And you'd have to stand in front of the Emporium or J.C. Penney, wherever, because they'd set up these ticket offices at these big, you know, stores that people would normally go to anyway. When I went to go see The Who, I had to stand in line overnight with a couple of other friends, and we had to do all of our accounts. I was working as a janitor back then, uh, and a musician. Thus, I made so much as a musician. I was working as a janitor, and we hit everybody's accounts. And we stood in front of the Emporium at Cottingtown in Santa Rosa, California, for our tickets all night, freezing our asses off to get those tickets, right? And I remember those tickets to go see The Who were a good $2.50 to $3 or $4 more than it took me to go see, Paul McCartney a year before that, or if not Paul, say another hot band. And the prices started going up, but even for a decade after that, it wasn't insane. All right. I think it was in probably the mid 80s where things started getting kind of out there. And that probably happened more with the bigger rockers really commanding the ticket and the other bands, joining up for a big ticket price, but you'd get three or four bands for a concert for those kind of monies. In the 90s, it started going crazy. So I agree with you there. Let's see, Australian group. I remember Redbone. I remember Redbone too. I don't know them that well. Kevin Hall is saying this. Um, had the Potlatch LP. All right, Kimberly, would you take a screenshot of that? I'll take a look at that for further um, looking into that for the future. Storm Cop says Def Leppard refuses to use backing tracks. And they were one of the bands that I have an article on that talked about that. I think they said that they use a drum click track that is involved with a drum intro and a couple of keyboard tricks. But James, I've always said that the Who did that when I went to go see them live back in the day. They had those, all those synthesizer loops that you heard from the Who's Next album. They had that live, but it didn't interfere. That loop was set at a certain time. They let it go. The band played over it in time, and then as it dropped out, the band took over. And I've said backing tracks used that way is not wrong. As a matter of fact, that's kind of nice. It's a little bit extra addition, and it never gives the audience even the hint that that band isn't playing live. So, good point there. Zappa, the Mad Genius, obviously. We've covered Zappa quite a bit on Royce. Royce is a major Zappa fan. And by the way, tonight, we're covering Pink Floyd on Royce tonight. So you guys got to stick around for that stream. I can't wait for this. That's my third favorite band of all time, and it's been a while since we've covered Pink Floyd, hasn't it, Royce? So I'm looking forward to that. Just a heads up, if you're late to the stream, after I sign off here at 6:30, Royce in the House starts, and I'll be on that panel as well. Ian LaBelle, whenever Frank is mentioned, I automatically turn into him. Zappa. Okay, good one there. Dwayne Chamberlain, Pro Jam has always fought the machine. Yes, and I have my criticisms of Pearl Jam. Eddie Vedder's voice is great, but it kind of grates on me song after song after song. But I love two of their albums that I consider absolute classic rock masterpieces. So I'm a lukewarm um, Pearl Jam fan, but a bigger fan of the people behind the band. At least they stand up and they back up what they talk about, right? Okay, at the cost to them, by the way, Pearl Jam lost a lot of money with that fight with Ticketmaster. Okay, let's see. Roger Daltrey mimes on "Won't Get Fooled Again." When and where was this? Or was this something to happen all the time, Dawson? I don't know. I wasn't aware of that. Every time I've seen him, he seemed like to be in the real moment. But if that's true, shame on him. Pink Floyd hit, this is again TJ. Uh, Pink Floyd hid the master tapes of the wall until Columbia caved in. And also, Roger Waters won a coin toss. So the band got higher royalties on the wall sale. I was just reading about that, TJ. And you're absolutely right. The record company didn't think it was quite ready to release. There was some probably some doubts even within the band, and but it took off and it sold like hotcakes. It is their second biggest selling album ever, only beneath, of course, Dark Side of the Moon. But being a double album, I think it sold 40 million copies compared to the 70 million copies that Dark Side sold. But it's a double album, so you're going to be making more money. So probably they're kind of like the twin albums. And I'm currently reassessing The Wall, which was the first part of that members only video, the prequel to what I'm going through there. And that'll be a future video I'll be covering on this channel, a complete retelling of The Wall and a review of the album as well. Deuces Wild. Ed Sheeran is doing a small private show in a small town near me for 2 nights. You just need to show an old message from your phone from someone to get into the show. It's 2 nights. Oh, he's going underground. Huh? I like that. I like anything that creates a sense of community. And so I'm always good. Kiss is good at having a community of fans, but I think they're starting to lose. I think even some of the big time Kiss Army is getting a little bit pissed off at Kiss as a unit right now because basically they lied and here they are back, and yet they were charging top dollar for that Goodbye Sayonara tour. Shame on them. John Patterson. Part of the problem is modern concerts demand to hear a polished live performance. You're right, Guy or John, I, Guy Patterson. Sorry about that, John. You're absolutely right. There is a lot of pressure for that. I remember seeing Kiss in '77, and the sound was brutally distorted, like it was put through a meat grinder, which is how they should sound. A band like that should sound like that. Don't glossen it up. Do what you do, right? Christian says, Michael Nolan, you're nailing it. Thanks. Thanks, Christian. I appreciate that. Al Val, one of the first bands that got sued for using backing tracks in 1978 was ELO. Yeah, there's been a lot of criticism about that. Part of their allure was that they actually had different kinds of instrumentation and presenting it as a rock band feel. And but there, I think people have said that he's added tracks upon tracks upon tracks to give it more of the sound of the record. And everybody knows what I feel about that. I want the band, whoever it is that's making up the band to do what they can. And if you want to have a church bell introduce a song, or a synthesizer loop to introduce a song, or to kind of connect two songs or something like that. You want to pipe the sound of thunder and have lighting go up like it's lightning in front of the audience to create an ambience. I'm all for that, but not for the backing tracks, not for anything that's not an honest live performance. Remember, we're talking about live performances here, right? Okay. So, Brenda Snow, let's see. Brenda Snow, click tracks aren't always used for backing tracks. Many light shows and changes on the soundboard are programmed to someone isn't constantly turning knobs and pressing buttons. You're absolutely right. And I have no trouble with click tracks signaling light responses. That's fine, right? And they have an algorithm running that. I'm not against all algorithms, Brenda, at all. All right. I just, my whole message is keep algorithms as dumb as we possibly can while at the same time gearing them up to do the best job they can do, but keep their freaking hands or their inanimate hands or their virtual hands off of human creativity. I just don't want to see it. But good point. Good point. And there's a lot of mechanization Oh my goodness, what do we got here? Michael Boswell, another $20. My goodness. Oh my goodness gracious. Now, what does he have to say here? Let me see if I can get down to Michael here. He says, I will disagree, Michael. Kiss never did say they were completely retired. Okay, so let's take a look at what Michael's got to say here. How much time? Yeah, I've got it. This is a good place to start, and we may keep this going. An idea. I've got an interesting for a part two for a midweek stream. But Michael says, I disagree, Michael. Kiss never did say they were completely retired. They said they were too old to do the full blown costume concert. I always took that they would be unmasked and cruise concert venues limited. And so did I, by the way, Michael. That's what I thought that they meant by it, right? And then Gene Simmons announced he's going to do, and I was all for that. I go, more power to him. Get out there, no costume, just rocking and rolling, right? But notice what they're doing and what they can't do here, Michael. And it was a clear, we are done. The article I read used a quote from Paul Stanley uh, to make him think, or to make you think that he was talking about doing possible live shows, which he never did. He just quit, right? So, and what he was talking about was Kiss having a future. And that article I read, you'd have to go back. Was that on a stream or my regular videos? I've covered so many different types of videos this last couple of weeks. I'm trying to remember where I said it, but I know what I said. And he was talking about Kiss being bigger and with that there was a bigger future. And he was talking directly about the Avatar show, everything they did. Michael, even parts of the Kiss Army right now are kind of pissed at him because they feel they said goodbye. And even if you're right, let's say you're right, that they never actually said we'd never do it again. But they did sell the image so that they can't do it like they did do it. So they at least partially said they would never do it again by the very fact that they can't dress up and play Kiss songs, right? And how they're putting this together, you know what, Michael? Gene, right now says one thing one day, and the next day he's reinventing his statement about what they're going to do, and now he's bringing his statement from before this whole thing got announced. He was hiring somebody to be $12,000 to be his roadie. And now he's talking about that being part of the package and how they won't have to do this and all of that. But you know what, Michael, you've made me more. You've said enough that I'm going to reinvest some time and effort and understand who said what. And if there's a video in it, I'll put it out. And if I'm wrong, I'll bring that up on a live stream, Michael. So thanks for bringing that up, and thank you so much for your wonderful super thanks. Let's see, who else did I not get to? I'm going to have to get down here because we're coming up on it, folks. Kevin Hall, Dividing Dragon, absolutely was all pop in our record shops. But when we had that one star in the city, okay, so you guys are talking about a specific record store, I think. Yeah. Okay. And then James Redding, everyone should know that when they say retirement, that means for a year only. Ha ha. Well, these days, that's exactly what it means, James, doesn't it? I mean, really. Hey, it's good to see you in there, Dr. Rick. Doc goes way back. He's just chit chatting away. John Patterson, if the big bands would play the smaller hockey arenas in the secondary markets, that would produce a local sense of being part of the bigger world. I agree. I agree. Just get in there and start touring. But you know what they do when they set up tours now? They do it in legs, legs of tours. And they often start with the city they want to wind up in to say hello and then to say goodbye. And it's usually a key city that is representative of a whole lot of their fan base, right? And then they chase the money, and well, they chase the money from that point, which usually means they go to the bigger venues, right? And they start booking those. And if they're a band that can't sell out a 40,000 seat venue, then for that concert and a series of other concerts of similar size, they might even have a band that'll join them from time. We're seeing this all the time. So it is a matter of money. Yes, darling.
Storm Cop said, "Hey, we are the tribe. We're not always going to see eye to eye with each other, but we can have a respectable debate with each other."
Yes, you know what? That is great. I love that, James, and I'm glad you brought that up because Michael and I are the dude gave me $20. If I was ever tempted to agree with the guy, you know, uh, but that's the whole deal. And I don't get from Michael that he wants a yes answer. Uh, he just wants, like all of you, the ability to say what you think. If you disagree with me, if you think everything I've said tonight is a bunch of hogwash, you like your music sounding as close to the eventual thing that it is. You don't mind that there's backing tracks. You don't care if the lead singer is actually singing or not. And you're doing well enough. Maybe you're, at the top of your game in life as a professional, making top dollar. You're in your 30s or 40s, or a very successful late 20-year old, in the 20s. And so paying, I just looked at, what was it? I'm not going to remember the band and the tickets. And I went right back to see because they've been making noise. I wish I could think of the band. I'm not going to be able to think of it right now. But I went and checked their tickets, and just for two people, most people want to go to a concert with at least one other person, right? Most of us. And it would have cost them $6,000 to be seated. And this was away from the band. Actually, it was for Kiss. All right. There's a box out there that's about halfway between the rafters and whatever, but it has a better seating and visual aspect of the roof, the ceiling, the sky, which is what that thing is. I've called it an inverted television set, right? And they're close enough to the band that with some opera glasses, they could actually make out Gene Simmons. All right. So now the high ticket prices aren't going for the ones that were right in front of the stage. We're going for less than that because the ones right in front of the stage doesn't see the glory of the sphere, right? So tell me that this is where we're going. AI, don't tell me AI isn't going to be involved with the sphere. The only thing I can say is the sphere is in financial trouble and couldn't happen to a nicer entity. Ian LaBelle, I'm just saying that rock will become like jazz or class. Yeah, Ian, that's right. It'll be a niche thing. How many hardcore classic freaks do you know? Yeah, you're right. You're right. And I've said that many times. I agree with you 100%. Every dog has its day. Everything has a shelf life. And please tell some of these rockers they have a shelf life because they seem to think that there is no shelf life. They don't have to produce anymore. They don't have to create. They can just do their hits and not even do their hits. They can have a lot of backing tracks. All they have to do is show up, half of them bent over and everything. But you're right. I think rock and roll reached its heyday. Now we all are hoping and praying for, and I'm going to set this down because we're coming up on the hour, but not right away here. Oh, and by the way, we got two of super thanks, but they were $20 each. After I'm done with Royce tonight, I will release that members only video for you folks just for those wonderful super thanks. Thanks to Michael Boswell and Dan the Man. He paid for it, and it'll go back into my members only. And it won't make as much sense as if you saw part one, but you can always join the channel and be a part of this. It's going to be a 5 part uh, um, um, uh, kind of presentation, and this will be part two. I will put that out because you guys supported the channel tonight. All right. So it is time to shut down, but I did want to say one last thing to Ian, and I'm sorry I didn't get to all of your conversation here. You guys are just so wonderful. Every time I sign off, Kimberly talks like for 10 minutes about what you guys were talking in there. She's so impressed with you. She loves the sense of community we have. She loves the idea that we can disagree and still be a tribe, a, a hive mind that likes one thing. And that's what I wanted to say about, was it Ian's comment here that I was on? Darn it. I let it, yes, it was Ian's. Is that every form of music has its heyday, and then but we still, it's like John Lennon said, you guys want us to get back to the Beatles. Hey, you really want the Beatles? They're still the old albums, right? And I think rock and roll has been greatly served. It ruled the airwaves for half a century. Name another subgenre that's done that, right? And it did it with about 110 subgenres of rock and roll. And it was only when subgenres that had nothing to do with rock and roll that it lost its footing. We're all praying for a comeback. Everybody's praying for, Mike Tyson to put that loudmouth down, but like Mike Tyson, maybe it's too late for rock to resurface as a major entity. But with over 50 years and tens of thousands of great albums and hundreds of thousands of songs that was created during that period, what a well to go back to. And I think there'll always be an audience for that. Just like today, Ian, there's an audience for jazz. Cynthia Marie, and a brand new tribal elder. She sent it. Oh my goodness gracious, $20 from you. All right, all right. 24 hours. Here's what I'm going to do so that you guys all got caught up. I like the Beatles. I want to give you a bang for your buck, right? I'm going to temporarily now. You members, Marie, you're one of them. Don't get angry, but you members are actually getting an early release out of this. I'm also going to release part one. All right, and I'll keep it up for 24 hours. That'll give enough people out here to get an idea. Maybe we can get a few more people to join. And then I'll put it back as channel members. And then within a week, you'll get part three. And part three, I'm going to conduct right from here. Part one and two were conducted right by my turntable and my albums. And I'll explain what that's all about. Thank you so much for that wonderful super thanks. All right, it's 6:03. Royce is going to be streaming in 27 minutes. So that gives me just enough time to get off here and go do my hair and, what it is that I do. None of your business in between streams. And I'll see you all on Royce. I hope you all make the jump to Royce in the House. We're talking. Oh man, is this as exciting as I was, or excited as I was to talk about what I was talking about on my stream tonight? I am equally excited about talking about my third favorite band in rock and roll, and one of the biggest bands to a lot of you. I just saw that come out of my eye. Thank you so much, Dave Sanchez. Are you new? Yeah, the name looks familiar. Have I bumped into you before, Dave? All right. Thank you so much. Did he? He didn't include anything on there. Just a gift. All right. I thank you so much. I can't wait. Please follow me over to Royce. We've got a great show planned for you. I know Royce has been working his ass off, folks. He always does his research. I've done a bit of research. And of course, we both bring in a collective knowledge that we kind of have retained being fans for the last 50 years, right, Royce? And yet we're both still finding it difficult to turn 29. You know, don't trust the man over 30. Anyway, you guys have been terrific. I can't say thank you enough. And I'm feeling much better, by the way. I want to thank all of you for your well wishes. I spent half of the month of March under the weather, still managed to get things out, but I get something out and then I collapse 2 days in the bed. All right. So I love each and every one of you, and I mean that seriously. There is a generalized love I have for this tribe. And let's just not get our nipples in a twist if somebody disagrees with us. That's all part of the thing. And maybe even listen to the disagreement. I've been known to change. Matter of fact, some of you people right here in the comments tonight have changed my mind in the past, and you know you have. So I'm not set in stone, and neither is the opinion of the bottom line, which is the name of the channel. And it's certainly not the truth with the Tribal Forum, which is what I call this channel when I live stream. All right, I'm Michael Noland. This has been the Tribal Forum. You guys absolutely freaking rock. And please go grab a cup of coffee or whatever it is that you need to take and join Royce and I over at Royce in the House. All right. Royce in the House, type that in if you're not familiar with it. And we're going to have a panel discussion on Pink Floyd. All right, guys, you guys have been terrific. And I will see you sometime midweek. I don't know. I've streamed on a Tuesday now, a couple of Wednesdays, and a couple of Thursdays. I'm still trying to find my feet, my energy, and also be able to continue to do my regular videos and my channel member videos. So everything's kind of guesswork right now. I'll see you guys. It's now 6:06 p.m. So I'll see you all in about 24 minutes, I'm hoping. All right. Let's give Royce one hell of a viewership tonight. All right. And give him a thumbs up. Let's really pump this one out. I mean, it's about one of the most major bands in rock and roll, and what a crazy ass history they've had. I'm sure we're going to talk it all through tonight. All right, folks. Michael Nolan, this is the Tribal Forum, and I'll see you in my next video.